Hello, you dirty potters. How are you today? Welcome to another episode of... Oh, that was kind of hard. My bad. Welcome to another episode of Glaze Review, where I take glazes off the shelf and from companies and test them for you before they get in your hands on white clay, brown clay, and test some combinations. In today's video, we are testing DL-70 Oxblood from the AMACO company. This is a dipping and layering glaze. On the last episode, we tested enamel white, and that came out pretty good as a liner glaze. But in today's video, we're going to put together this 5-pound bag of materials, dip these, and see how they come out on both white, porcelain, and red stone clay bodies. Something I learned last time from the previous glaze review we did with the dipping and layering glazes is that you need to use a bucket bigger than the amount of material you're using. And usually I would know that from my own experience, but like, I forgot. So now I only have this much space at the top of my dipping glaze bucket, and I don't feel like transferring it because this is kind of a lot of material for the price. You see, this is the bucket that I was using last time. This is the bucket I need to be using. This is a tad bit bigger than this, and I think that's gonna matter a lot. The thing that I really like about these glazes is when you open the box, they come with a super organized, professional looking sticker that you can put right on top of the lid, which I personally love, right? So it has the food safe sticker on there. It says what it's meant for, dipping or brushing. It tells you it's supposed to be for cone 5/6, and you get to keep this, right? So what I generally like to do, just for studio owners and people like me who are organization crazy, is I like to cut this up, peel the sticker off right here, and put it on top of the lid that I know I'm gonna be using for the top of my glaze bucket, and it looks so nice. Sometimes I don't put the instructions on the dipping bucket, but since we're on camera right now, there you go. I actually have to fix that. That's gonna bug me. I mean, it was funny, but like, oh yeah, there we go. For those of you who've never seen me put a dipping and layering glaze for AMACO together, they essentially give you the powder, you mix it with water, maybe even sieve it a little bit, mix it around with a drill, and in 5 minutes you have a very large amount of glaze. It's super, super easy to do. In fact, here's the materials. I'm gonna cut this portion off right here, grab the bottom of the bag, and I pull it out relatively slowly because I don't want dust everywhere, even though I'm technically wearing a mask right now, as you should. Once I add water to this is going to become a glaze.
It's poppin'. I don't know. It's poppin'. Let's go. What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know? They said my lip gloss is who? My lip gloss be poppin'. I'm standing at my locker and all the boys be stopping. Mac, L'Oreal, yep, cause I'm worth it. Oh, the way I put it on so perfect. Wipe the corners of my mouth so I work it when I walk down the hall where they can't.
See this? Everyone criticizes me for sieving my glazes too much, even when I make my own glazes. Other glaze makers are like, you don't have to sieve it, you could just mix it really well. No, you don't understand. See this extra stuff in here? I either spend 100 hours mixing this in, or I get a brush out, sieve it, and add a little bit more water while not adding enough water. And that's a big tip for me when I'm making my own glazes, because we always add in like 3/4 the amount of water unless we're using a blender or something, and then we add the rest of the water as we sieve this because we know we have to add more water to make the process easier. So as I go along, I'm gonna add a little bit more water. Big suggestion, if you're making a glaze like this pre-prepared for you at home, add about 3/4 of the water and then add more water as you go along with the process, and it should even out to the amount of water you need. Okay, now that we're done sieving this, I'm actually quite happy that I put this in a larger bucket. If you remember from the last episode, we did DL-11 enamel white from the AMACO company, and it fits inside of a smaller bucket. Granted, it's not that much smaller, but there must be a mineral inside of oxblood that makes things a little bit more, for lack of a better term, bloated. So there must be something taking up more space in the water than this glaze right here. So I'm pretty happy that we got away with murder right here by using something that was a tiny bit bigger instead of a full 5-gallon bucket. That being said, let's talk about what we're going to test with this glaze now. Of course, we need to test the base, so we're going to use a porcelain white clay body. This is the porcelain AMACO clay. It has a little bit of a crack right there, which is why I'm fine with using it for a tester. And this is going to be our white test style. This here is going to be red velvet. This is also an AMACO clay body. This is going to be our red stone or our red/brown clay body. These two are going to be tested at a base. So the glaze we're going to use on this is ox blood from the dipping and layering line. It's just going to be this and this by itself, nothing else. However, these over here, I'm saving for the charity empty bowls. These two are going to have the ox blood glaze with enamel white on the inside of them. So I still want to use this as a consistency test, but I'm also going to stop and kind of put some layering in there just to see how it works out. These two were most likely going to mix with Randy's Red or something from my own home line. I also have a red glaze that I'm testing out pretty soon, and I want to see how that red glaze combines with other glazes, and we might as well use them as experiments. So these two are going to have my base red glaze with ox blood on the top of them. I'm kind of hoping that the base red glaze isn't as runny so that I can put something on top of it and it will run, making a beautiful texture. So these two are going to be our combo. These two are going to be a combo with an AMACO glaze, and these two here are going to be the base glaze. With that being said, let's get started.
Time for lunch, my lips still rock. Little mama melon with the hot pink top. Cherry, vanilla, flavors is a virtue. They loving lip gloss universal. The boys really like it, the girls don't speak. They rolling their eyes, they lip gloss cheap. It ain't my fault, but I could upgrade. Just show you how to use nice things with nice flavors. What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know? They said my lip gloss is who? My lip gloss be popping. I'm standing at my locker and all the boys be stopping. It's popping. I don't know. It's popping. Let's go. It's popping. I don't know. It's popping. Let's go. It's popping. I don't know. It's popping. Let's go. It's popping. I don't know. It's popping. Let's go. It's popping.
Okay, and as we usually do, let's talk about what we're going to put inside the Cone 6 oxidation kiln before we actively put it in. This is a porcelain white mug with ox blood from AMACO, the dipping and layering glaze on top of it. This is going to be our white porcelain test style right here. As for this one over here is going to be our red stone or red clay test style right here. Now these are going to be base. These are only the ox blood glaze from AMACO on them and nothing else. So this is to see how they behave on both a pure white porcelain clay body as well as a red stone clay. However, the rest of them over here, and this one I'm actually quite interested in. This one is a dragon fruit clay body from the AMACO company. You guys know I love dragon fruit. It often has these little specks in it right here that sometimes show through the glaze itself. So I'm interested to see if there's any translusivity in this to the point where we would see dragon fruit affect the glaze. These last two here are ox blood splashed with enamel white on top. I wanted to see these just in case, you know, a lot of people ask why I make two of them. Like, why did you test it twice? Number one, consistency really matters to me. I want to know the product comes out twice. And number two, these are going to be for the charity donation empty bowls right here. So hopefully, if they come out really good, it'll sit just like this on the table and it'll look just like this. But I'm actually quite excited about this. I want to see how deep this ox blood is, and I also want to see if the enamel white affects that at all, because I've dealt with ox blood at a Cone 10 reduction kiln before. So I know what it ought to look like in a reduction kiln for the original recipe, and I wonder if this at all will emulate that in a Cone 6 oxidation kiln. That being said, we have our testers. Let's put them in the kiln. Okay, now that everything's out of the kiln, let's take a look. This is ox blood on a porcelain test style, single dipped all by itself. This is pretty good. This is actually really good. I like this a lot. I like how it kind of goes from this sheen of green into these red spots here. And this is setting off glaze maker and cone 10 reduction alarms for me. I had a glaze that I worked with quite some time ago in my college days when I did cone 10 reduction, and we had a glaze called Oxblood that was similar to this. It looked very, very similar to this. But in reduction, usually copper ends up turning, if you get the right reduction, copper ends up turning red because it takes all the oxygen out of the copper. And in which other cases, where there was oxygen supplied to the copper itself, which makes green, would usually make green instead of red. And I want to be clear, I have no idea if this is copper whatsoever, but there is a tinge of green here that I could see, as for a normal white glaze like this would not have. See, this is very white. It's difficult to tell without a comparison. This has a slight tinge of green. So I do kind of wonder if they're using some kind of silicone carbide trick, or there's a glaze that's very popular in the glaze space. Kind of looks like this a little bit, but this seems like a much more stable version of that. I'm pretty happy with this. This might actually go on my website. One thing I will say is try not to make it too thick, and it's a bit of a balancing act because where it's thick, it definitely congeals, but you also need a good application and the correct amount of water, or else it won't turn this type of red that you're looking for in the first place. Too much water, it'll probably just end up turning this kind of white right here, this whitish green. Okay, let's check out our enamel white and oxblood combinations now.
The way I spice it up with the Mac brushes. L'Oreal got them watermelon crushes. That's probably the reason all these boys got crushes. Time for lunch, my lips still rock. Little mama melon with the hot pink top. Cherry, vanilla, flavors is a virtue. They loving lip gloss universal.
For anyone who's wondering why this bowl is a little bit like this is a new style of bowl I've been working on, because I like to use these as sauce bowls. It's a little tiny, put a little katsu sauce in there, dip your chicken in there. You know, kind of pretend that sometimes I even I'll get it sooner or later. Sometimes I like to pretend that they're like sake bowls, or they have those little ones, but clearly much bigger. Where you're like, oh, let me just drink some of this. Listen, it's not, the episode's not about that. I just want to give you an explanation as to why they look weird. Okay, I like these. Let's leave it at that. This is a pretty good glaze, especially when it's mixed in with the enamel white. I'm having a difficult time finding combinations for AMACO's new dipping glaze enamel white, and this seems to be one of them. I think if I put it on a bit thicker, I'd get this kind of oil spot effect moreover, like I am right here. But I also did this combination on a couple of other bowls right here, and it almost ran off of the pot itself. So you want to be careful with these types of things right here. However, the glaze itself is turning out fairly consistent. I am getting majoritively this kind of greenish white mixed in with some other colors, and getting red where it's thick. So you can see that these are essentially consistent with these here, which are also consistent with, where'd it go? Which is also consistent with this right here. This is a really good sign for me. I love when I get glazes and they're consistent over a vast amount of multiple clay bodies. Granted, we didn't test this on a redstone clay body, but I think we're doing pretty good here. I would love to test this on red, I just didn't have one at the time. The last test tile, however, came out really good. This is oxblood on a dragon fruit, dragon heavily textured clay body at cone 6 oxidation.
Lip gloss cheap, it ain't my fault, but I could upgrade. Just show you how to use nice things with nice flavors. What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know about me? What you know? They said my lip gloss is who? My lip gloss be poppin'. I'm standing at my locker, and all the boys be stopping. It's poppin'. I don't know. It's poppin'. Let's go.
A truly beautiful combination of both glaze and clay. And granted, this is only one glaze on this clay body, but you can really see where the glaze started to let the clay body poke through the glaze matrix and made an entirely new texture. This glaze is just clear enough to let this type of rustic, runic looking type of glaze poke through, but also not so clear that if you put it on thick, you still get that good red. I am very, very happy with this. In fact, I might make more dragon cups or dragon mugs, or I'm not sure what to call these anymore. Sometimes I call them dragon cups, dragon bowl. I don't know. I might make more of these and dip them all in this glaze specifically because it's such a good, tasty, rustic looking glaze. You could take this to a Renaissance fair and it would fit right in, to be honest. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me. Oh, hold on. I have to do this. Hold on. Yeah. I like to put the glaze itself on screen at the end of the video just so you know what we're reviewing. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today of the review of Oxblood from the AMACO company. Thank you for sending me this glaze, AMACO. I like this glaze. I am going to keep this glaze. I think what happens a lot of the time is that I test glazes that AMACO gives to me, and then after I decide they have a place in my arsenal of glazes or not, I either give them to my students or I hand them off to another potter who needs glaze, because I want to be communal in that sense, right? I kind of want to share the wealth. That being said, I'm keeping this for myself. I like this a lot. The one note that I do have about this glaze is that none of my tests, almost none of my tests came out like this. Almost all of them came out this type of greenish creamy white that kind of looks like that glaze I was talking about earlier, Celso Uribe, and it looks a little bit like that, but almost none of them came out consistently red. This to me looked like a tin chrome red at first. Now I do not think it is tin chrome red. That's my only criticism about this glaze, is that from my testing you will most likely not get a full body all the time coated completely over full gloss red 100% of the time. You're most likely going to get a lot of white spots much like this. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. Good luck on your next art projects. Remember to click all those like buttons, and I will see you, Dirty Potters, next week.
Thank you for your patronage.
For those of you who are skipping around, I see you. You skip the first 4 minutes of me glazing and you go right to the, you click, I see you. Oh, but I don't have time to watch the entire video. Don't pretend like if I check your Instagram time in your settings, you wouldn't be on Instagram Reels for at least 2 hours a day. I don't want to hear it.
Watermelon crushes, that's probably the reason all these boys got crushes. Time for lunch, my lips still rock. Little mama melon with the hot pink top. Cherry, vanilla, flavors is a virtue. They loving lip gloss universal. The boys really like it, the girls don't speak.